everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of our series in which we will create a JRPG game ourselves, and we have no clue how to do that. Oh my god. One second here. And we have no clue how to do that. In our first episode, we tried to kick off a project with rpg.js, which is a framework for creating these kind of games. And this is where we left off, right? We were able to create the project, and what you see here is actually just a demo, right? It's a demo application which comes with the framework and just kind of, showcases what you can do with it. But at that point, we were kind of stuck because we didn't know how to move on and how to create our own map and how to create our own characters. And we didn't even know how to, get rid of this demo. So I did a little bit of research off camera, try to find a little bit of information how to use that framework, especially on YouTube. And there's literally nothing. So if I go to YouTube right here, come on. And if I search for rpg.js, you'll find pretty much nothing about this framework. I mean, there are a couple of tutorials how to create an RPG, but for example, this first video, I hope you guys can actually read what I'm showing you. This first video right here, it's about creating kind of a game engine from scratch, which is not what we're doing. And there are a couple of other videos. Here's mine. But there's no tutorial on rpg.js, which is a problem. But yeah, I've been going a little bit through the documentation, which is not that good. So there are a lot of mistakes and errors in that documentation, and there's a lot of information missing. But eventually, I managed to create this. So let me show you something. It's going to take a second to load up. Yeah, Webpack's not the fastest. Is it up yet? Let's see. That's not what I wanted. Is the wrong folder. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, no, this one. Oh, okay, there we go. So this is what I was finally able to create off camera. So I was able to create my own map. As you can see, there's something like a house, or castle, or part of a castle, with an entry, with a little bit of green and a sad little, I don't know what it is. It's too small for a tree, but yeah, whatever. And yeah, so and I also was able to put my own character in there. I can move around. There's not a lot of collision detection in there yet, so I can walk actually through the walls, which is not correct. But at least I have some collision detection right here, right? So I cannot get further right than here, but I can walk around. So this is already working. And I think it took me like, I don't know, 4 hours or so to get this working because, as I said, the documentation on that framework it's just so bad, and there are a couple of things you really need to be aware of. So let me show you how I did that. So let me close all this stuff right here. Oh, before we go ahead, let's see. I got a comment on my video last time from Rumi in Wonderland, and she wrote in German, so I'm just going to translate to you guys what she wrote. So, so she's proposing an idea for a story, right? And the idea is kind of that the main character can be a woman or a man, and whatever sex that character is, there is also a companion character, and that's from the opposite sex. Okay, and this companion character fell into a what we'll call a bucket of love potion. And whoever this person sees, that character will fall in love with, and that's why she is kind of, I don't know what you call it. She's blindfolded, right? Because she doesn't want to see anyone. Um, and when that side character and the main character meet, she kind of glimpses at the main character and sees that person. And for the first time ever, that side character does not fall in love with someone else, even though that person can see him. So that's one part. And the other part is that the main character kind of, looks a little bit like a guy, a little bit like a woman. And the fun part could be here that, whenever that character fights a monster, that monster can make fun of that character. Like, hey, can you cook me a soup or something? And I think that the second part is it's a pretty cool idea for the battle system, because whenever that main character gets gets yelled at or something, gets one of these things that the mobs say, he could go into kind of a furious mode and I don't know, get some kind of special attack or whatever. The first part of the story, it feels a little bit too romantic for my taste, but I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. Put it in the comments, okay? And then we'll see from there. Okay, so let's get back to our game. So here's the thing. Actually, let's. Let me just open my project folder. There you go. So here was the problem with where we got stuck last time. Let me actually close all this stuff here so it's not too confusing. When we started the game, it was creating this demo version of the game, right? And we weren't quite sure where this is coming from. So I did some research and found that there is an index.ts file here pretty much in the root of the project. And it's important something that's called a starter kit. So the starter kit has a lot of stuff built in there. So it has all the maps, character sprites, and whatnot. And you can actually have a look at how they built the demo by just pressing F12 on your keyboard. I mean, you have to go into this line here, then press F12. And then you should land in the node modules folder of your project. And over here, you can find all the stuff like, the maps and the sprite files. And then client folder, couple of those images, not sure what that is, but here in the maps folder, you can, for example, find all the sprites for the maps they're using for the demo. So this explains actually where the demo is coming from, right? So if you want to get rid of that, I'm just gonna comment out this stuff here because we don't need it. So get rid of this. I'm gonna save it. And then I'm gonna run builds, create a new build, and npm run dev. I'm just gonna restart the game. So give it a couple of seconds, and once this is done, this should go to a black screen. So give it a couple of seconds. It's not a very fast project, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, so compiling takes a while. Well, let's see. Yeah, see. So now we're actually starting with 0, right? So all the demo code is gone. And yeah, so what I do recommend is to actually have a look at the documentation, because this is pretty much the only thing you have. And so you can skip first 2 sections. These are kind of a little bit of explanation about the project. The third part, creating a module, this one you can skip as well, because there is already a module, and it's called main, and this is all we need for the moment. So if you go into the source folder and then under modules, you can see there is already a main module, right? So we're going to use that. So we skip the third section as well. And then we go to the fourth section, which is create a tile set for the map. So what they're doing here is they're using this sample sprite. Now the problem with this sample sprite is that it's not complete. It's saying, warning, the image above is only part of a tile set. So we're going to need a proper tile set. So what I've done is I've simply searched on Google for random sprite sets, and I found this one on opengameart.org, and it seems to be CC BY 3.0 license, so I can use it. I only have to credit Linnea Zimmerman. So dear Linnea, I hereby credit you for your work. And I've downloaded all the files for this pretty small sprite set, and it creates something like this, right? Actually, the sprite set doesn't create that. It's just a tool for you to create a map like that. And I'm going to show you in a couple of seconds how to create that map. Right, so I've downloaded all the assets. So these are the files here. And we won't need all of them. But if you look into these, actually let me make these a little bit larger. Right, so there are a couple of characters in there, even more characters. Right, but actually all we need for now is the basic tiles one, I think. Yeah, I think this is the one we want. So basic tiles is a sprite sheet which has all the the components that we need to create a map. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this file, and in our project folder I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it tilesets, or what should I call it? I'll just call it map. Yeah, map. I'm going to copy it in here, and this one's called basic tiles. And I'm actually gonna rename this to what do they call it? Let me have a look. Because they are using they're using medieval as the name for this. So I'm just gonna use the same file name, because I noticed that if you use different names for the files, you will get into trouble, because the framework simply doesn't like it, and you get all kinds of weird error messages. So just make sure that you always use the same file names for your maps. And then just follow the instructions, right? And this is already a problem here. So if you follow the documentation instructions, it says place the image into source client maps asset, all right, fine. And then create the following file in source clients characters medieval.ts. So this is wrong. We're creating a map, so you should not put it into the characters folder, which was the first mistake that I did, but the documentation is simply wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to source client maps medieval.ts. So I'm going to go to source modules. Actually, we're creating a module, right? So the correct path is source modules main client, And over here, create a new folder and call it map. Or is it maps? I don't think it's important. So it's, and then medieval.ts. New file right here. And then I'm gonna paste in this stuff here. All right. And what this is doing is just pulling the sprite image that we just created, right? And as you can see, it's pulling it from the assets folder. So we need to create that, create the assets folder. And we're gonna open this one in Finder. Now I'm just gonna copy over our image that we downloaded, all right? That's all I'm gonna do for now. So that's that. Then we continue to follow the instructions. Add the tile set to the game. Sure, I can do that. So next is I'm going to go to the modules main client and then index.ts. Main client and then index.ts. Whoops, I think this is the wrong one. Is this the wrong one? Yeah, this one. Yeah. And then I'm just gonna copy and paste everything from here and put it into this file. We have to change the path here because as I explained earlier, they're using the wrong path. So I'm going to change it to /maps/medieval. So this is the correct path. Is it tilesets? Tilesets, yeah, that's good. So what this code is actually doing, it's importing the tileset and telling the framework that this sprite should exist and where you can find it, right? So that's what this part is doing. I'm gonna move on. And now here comes the tricky part. Now the documentation is talking about defining collisions. And it's saying, hey, you know, create a new tile set and stuff like that. I think this is too early. First, you need to create a map, right? And if you go to the left side, there's a section actually over here called create map. And you know, there's a lot of stuff in there, and they're explaining how to create the map programmatically, so create map class and stuff. But here's a full section, and it's just missing. It says create map with tiled map editor. So tiled map editor, that's this tool which we downloaded last time, right? And we really didn't understand how this worked. But I'm going to explain to you guys how this works in a second. But you know what really grinds my gears is that the section's just missing. There's no explanation how to create the map, which really sucks. Yeah, so let's do actually both, the create the tile set and the map. So what I'm going to do is, I'm first gonna, let me actually create the tile set first, maybe. Yep, and I'm gonna call it medieval. Is this the right file name? Medieval, yeah. It's based on a tileset image, that's correct. The source, so we're gonna go to our game folder. And remember that we put the file in the module folder client maps assets, and this is the medieval PNG sprite file. So we're going to open that. And this is also pretty tricky. So if we go to this page here where I downloaded the sprite sheet, it says this is a 16 by 16 tile sprite sheet. So if we go back to our tool, I need to change this to 16 by 16. Otherwise, the tile size is not going to match. So I'm going to save it. I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to call it medieval.tsx because we're going to need that later. Actually, I'm going to save it to the map folder. There you go. So let me make this a little bit bigger so you can actually see what's going on. Yeah. And yeah, this is pretty much all we need. The only thing that you can change and probably should change here is you want to tell the game which objects the character can collide with and which objects the character can go through, right? So for example, like a little bit of green, the character can go through, but if there's a wall, the character obviously cannot go through that wall. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to click on this element here, and I'm going to click on this plus icon here in the bottom left corner. It's a blue plus icon. And I think the property that I'm going to add is called collision, but that's actually explained here in the documentation, where it says define collisions. And here, collision, and I'm going to set it to the bool type, right? So collision bool, and I want to check it. And I'm also gonna do the same thing with this piece of wall here. I'm not gonna do this for every item. But you know, just for the sake of the demo. Alrighty. So that's that. So now we have our tile set. Next, I'm gonna go over here to new and then new map. And this is what the documentation is not explaining to you. It's not explaining how you actually create the map, which is actually pretty cool. I'm gonna go to new map. I'm gonna say it's orthogonal, right? It's not isometric. CSV you can keep as it is. Same thing for this render order option. And I want pretty small map. So I'm gonna go with 20 by 20 tiles, and the tile size again is 16 by 16. All right. I'm going to save it. I'm going to put it to the same kind of temporary folder. It's outside of our coding project, okay? Because we're going to copy these files into our project a little bit later. And I'm also going to call this medieval. Keep in mind to always use the same name, right? Don't use any different names. All right, so now you're getting to this view, and you might be confused. Hey, okay, what's going on here? How do I use this? So this view is actually representing our 20 times 20 map. Sorry, 20 times 20 tiles map. And the way this works is we have our sprite sheet over here in the bottom right corner, which we've edited a couple of minutes ago. And you can just pick anything from here. So for example, I can pick a little bit of green and just drag it over here, right? So this is how I fill my map, like that. I'm gonna do that for all the tiles because you know, I want to start in a nice green field. And this tool is actually pretty good. So first time I opened it, I thought, okay, this is probably crap and it's not really usable, but it's actually pretty good. And you know, you can add all kinds of stuff like a little bit of, you know, decoration, maybe a couple of trees here, right? So you can make this a forest. I have not figured out yet how to make this the background of these trees transparent. So I still have to figure that out. But what I can definitely do now is I can create my little house, right? So this is my house. Of course, there's a door. And I can give it a carpet, right? So this is my carpet. And if I want, I can also put in my URL that you might have seen earlier. And this is pretty much it. So what's this actually? Oh, flowers. Yeah, let's add some flowers right there. Right. So something like that. Then I'm going to save it and go back to our documentation. So I think we are mostly done now with the tile set. I don't think there's anything else we have to change. Yeah, that's fine. Then we're going to go to the next section, create a map. And we have already created our map, so that's good. And then it says create a new file in source main server maps. So this is super interesting. Remember that in the first episode I said that we want to create kind of a standalone offline game, and I was very confused why this would need a server. It seems like a server is mandatory. You cannot play this without a server, which does not mean that this comes some kind of, you know, MMO RPG where you can play with multiple people together. That's not what it is. It is definitely something that you can use to create an offline single player game, but you still need that server. And the server is gonna provide all the information on the map, what is located where, while the sprite sheet that we created earlier, that's located in the client part. So that's why we put it here, right, into the client folder. But now we need to take care of the server-side part. So we're going to the server folder, maps, and then create a new file, medieval.ts. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to server, maps, and then new file, medieval.ts. I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff. Right? So far so good. Then it says put an identifier to the map. So we have that. So our identifier is going to be medieval. And set the absolute path to the tmx file. So the tmx file is the file that we just created. Let me show you. All right. So these are the three files that we downloaded or created, right? The first one, PNG, is the downloaded sprite sheet. We have already added that to our project. And then we have our tmx file, which is the file that we just created, which describes how the map looks like. And we have our tsx file, which defines where the collisions happen in our sprite sheet. So what I'm going to do is, in our game project, I'm going to go to source, modules, main, server, maps, right? And then here in the documentation, it says in the maps folder, it's requiring a file called medieval.tmx in the tmx folder, okay? So that's over here, so we need to create a folder which is called tmx. I'm gonna copy over the tmx file, all right? And that's pretty much it. And then the next part is add the map in your game. Okay, so in our source module made server index.tx. So let's have a look where that is. Server, let me close this part. Server index.tx, this file here. Copy and paste this. All right, sure, no problem. And now it's kind of complaining about something, right? And if we have a look, it says the import path cannot end with the .ts extension. Yeah, this is kind of normal, so you have to remove this .ts, and now it's gonna be fine. And then add the map created in the property maps in the RPG module folder. This is correct. So we are importing the map, so the medieval.ts file over here into our index ts file, and we are defining the map that we just imported. Alrighty. So the app crashed. I think I know what the reason is. I think we forgot to copy over our tsx file, didn't we? So the tsx file needs to be, I think, in the same folder as our tmx file. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to restart. So I always do npm run build and then do npm run dev because I always want a fresh build. So give it a couple of seconds and see if it works. All right, good. So if I now open up the game, it's probably not going to work, right? Yeah, so it doesn't show the game. This is where the fun starts, because I've been struggling with this for about, I don't know, for an hour or so. But I think eventually I figured out, yeah, this is the problem. So you need to open your medieval.tsx file, and this is pretty much an XML file. And there's this part here, the image source. This is referencing our sprite image, and the path needs to be correct. And by default, it's setting something strange over here, which is just not correct. So what you need to do is you need to set this path relative to the tsx file. So from here, I need to go up one folder, another one, and another one. So 3 parts up, and then I go into the client folder, maps, assets, and then there's our image, right? So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then client, maps, assets, medieval. So this should do the trick. I'm going to restart it. I really want one of those M1 Max. Because mine is from 2015. It's pretty bad. So let me reload it. Okay, still not showing the game, but that's fine. Because I think, from what I understood is, I think you first need to add the character. Without the character, it's not showing the game. And also, let me just try one thing. I noticed that in the demo, it's setting this to a different version, 1.4.3, I believe. I'm not sure if this makes a difference, but it's something that I noticed. In general, if you get stuck or if you want to know how to build a certain thing in the game, just go back to the starter kit, the thing that I showed you earlier in the node modules folder, and go in there, and there's a lot of stuff that you can copy, and you can always use sprites and other images from that demo. All right, so far so good. Actually, we still have a blank screen. That's not good. But just move on with the documentation. So the next section says create animated tiles. So I'm not going to do that for now because this is kind of eye candy. Animation you need for example, here you can see water, so you can kind of create an animation effect for moving water. But I simply skipped it because it's not necessary for now. Then this is the interesting part. Create a sprite for a character, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same sprite image they're providing here. I mean, you can use whatever you want, but I'm just going to use this one for now. And they say place the image into source client characters assets. Okay, no problem. So it's in source client. I need to create a new folder, call it characters. Assets. And that's it. I'm just gonna drag it over here. All right. Then create the following file in source client characters. Okay. So in source client characters, a new file, and call it hero.ts, which makes sense. And I'm just gonna copy and paste this whole section. I didn't read through everything they're doing here, but my rough understanding is they are defining, you know, how to move the character, right? So down, left, right, up, direction keys. Oh, I need to restart my camera. Hold on a sec. Yeah, I'm recording in high resolution today, so my SD card gets filled up a little bit quicker. But yeah, that's what it is. And then in our sprite sheet over here, we are just defining an ID for the character. So it's called hero. It's saying, okay, you can find that sprite sheet here in the assets folder, right? So that's, whoops, that's this file over here, our character sprite. And then, you know, it's just defining a couple of attributes for the character, you know, the size, for example, this one is 4 × 4 pixels, stuff like that. I'm sorry, 128 × 192 pixels. But that's not so important. I'm going to go back to our documentation. Yeah, so this last part I simply skipped. I think this is if you wanted to create a custom character with a custom sprite sheet. You can do that here, but we don't need it for now. So the last step for our game is we need to place the character on the map. So it says set player start map. Sounds good to me. You must have created a map and added in your game. So we have that. Next, we are going to create a player class. This one here. It says create a player object. The file or structure is server/player_ts. Okay. Server/ player.ts. Oh, it's already existing, isn't it? Yeah. So there's some code in there. I'm just going to move everything and paste in. Whoops. I'm going to paste in all the code from our documentation. Like that. And here you can already tell that why we need the ID, right? So the ID which we have set here. That's very important because here we need to reference the character sprite. So that's that. And then the last part is we need to position the character on the map. So there are two ways to do it. You can use the tiled map editor. You can try that. I failed doing that. So I went for solution 2, which is a little bit easier. So solution 2 just use a couple of coordinates to set it on the map, which sounds good enough to me. So I'm just gonna take all this code. I'm gonna overwrite everything in our player TS like that. Oh, actually, yeah. So they're posting various versions of the code. So I'm just gonna scroll down to the to the final version. All right, here. So I'm gonna use this and paste it in. So that's what we want. So going through the code is quite simple. It's pulling the hero character. It's positioning the character at 100 × 100 coordinate position. And then it's going to set the player health point to 500. All right? Then the last step is we need to import our character into the game. So we need to go to server/index.ts. So that's this file here. And I think all they're doing, I think I can copy and paste everything from here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fine. And just don't forget to remove the TS. All right. So that's that. And I'm pretty sure this is not going to work yet. So we have at least our map, right? So this is really interesting. When you created the map and added the map to the game, it did not show up. But when we created the character and added the character to the game, now all of a sudden the map shows up, which is just completely nuts. That's how it is, but our character is not showing up yet, right? Because there's one important part which is not mentioned in the documentation. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go to the client folder, and the client folder in the index.ts. This is where it says sprite sheets, right? And in the documentation it says, hey, you only need to provide the sprite sheet for the map, which is wrong. You also need to provide the sprite sheet for the character. So I'm going to import it, right? Quite simple. What's it called? Hero character. So I'm going to import hero character from characters/hero, like that. And then we need to add our hero characters to the sprite sheets, like that. Save it. There you go. Now we have our character. And this is the cool part. Remember that we added the collision detection to the walls of the house, right? So I cannot get out of here. This actually works. Maybe we should have made that door a little bigger, because right now I cannot pass through because my character is too big. But I think I can just change the coordinates of the character to get out. So I'm going to change this to 200. Yeah, so now I'm outside, right? I can move around. I have collision detection. I cannot get into the house. I cannot walk through the well. I can walk through the woods and I can walk through the grass, but I cannot get to the house. Yeah, that's that. And I'm super happy with that because I think that's kind of a breakthrough experience. For the next episode of our series, I think we're gonna continue with the documentation. I'm thinking about, doing a similar thing as I did today, doing a little bit of preparation so I'm not completely clueless. And the next section is about creating an in-game event. So an event can be anything, for example, a character talking to you or something like that. So I think that's what we're going to try next time. All right. Until then, please comment down there in the comment section what you think about our series so far, what storyline you want for the game, and the third and not the most important part, but a question which has not been answered yet is what should we name the game, right? So it would be cool if you can come up with a couple of ideas. And that's that. See you next time. Bye bye.